Real estate reimagined. Adaptive reuse, now a strong alternative to ground up construction. This article is by Brian Bandel from South Florida Business Journal. Brian says, at a glance at the Fort Lauderdale building shows the high arching ceiling and the stained glass of a traditional church. But the structure welcomes patrons of another kind. Revealers who dance the night away at Angel's nightclub. A church to a nightclub. That's been done before in New York City. A creative example of a reuse for former First Evangelical Lutheran Church wasn't the first option for developer Italy Ivatel, founder of Fort Lauderdale-based Tahoe Investments. He originally aimed to build an apartment tower to replace the Flagler Village Church, but the city designated it as historic. That's when Ivatel became a convert to one of the hottest development trends in South Florida, adaptive reuse. He brought in restaurateur David Gardici, who envisioned the massive sanctuary as an event space with the restaurant. Now the Holy Blue, they gutted the interior but maintained the exterior of the building to keep the church's signature elements. It took almost 2 years of working on it, but when you see how it looks now, it's worth it, Avatal said. You feel like you are in something that's been there for 100 years. So it's created a very special vibe. With the cost of building materials surging over the past year and the scarcity of available land in urban cores, some have discovered adaptive reuse as a more cost-effective mode for development. It can also create compelling space for tenants that appreciate a historic feel over newer buildings. While South Florida lacks a lot of buildings of hundreds of years old, there are plenty of historic structures near its urban centers, generally the first places in the region to be developed. What's more, the growth of e-commerce has resulted in the loss of bank branches, department stores, print shops, auto parts stores, which create adaptive reuse opportunities for all of the developers. However, the strategy involves some risk. When dealing with buildings constructed in another generation, it's a challenge to know what pearls lurk behind the walls or underneath the floorboards. Completely tearing down buildings to make way for new construction creates a lot of waste in both the trash building materials and the energy expended during the demo, said Carlos Prio, a founding principal of Miami-based architecture firm Tuzet Studio. He recently worked with Miami-based Terra to convert an old parking garage in Coconut Grove into the Mary Street office building. They removed one of the level of the parking garage, added 3 floors of office space, removed some ground floor, and redesigned the spaces for retail. The office building is now fully leased. People are starting to look at the old stock of buildings. And if the structure is good shape, it makes sense not to demo it, but to convert it into a different use. In most cases, it's much more affordable to do so because you're not doing all the underground work. In fact, when Prio Tuzet designs new parking garages, he does so with the expectation that they will eventually be redeveloped because there will be less demand for parking in the future. The garages have flat floors, and the ramps can be easily disassembled so the space can be converted to other uses. Adaptive reuse has gained steam in South Florida because of its land-constrained market. Without many vacant properties, there's a labor shortage for big construction jobs, and working with municipalities for ground-up construction permits is often a lengthy process, said Jamie Surges, CEO of Fort Lauderdale-based Native Realty. He has led numerous adaptive reuse projects in the Flagler Village neighborhood. Many of the best adaptive reuse opportunities are in industrial buildings near the urban core, especially in walkable areas. People like to have warm spaces where they feel connected to the building, Surges said. Not everybody wants an institutional corporate setting. They want more natural settings and something that feels more like home. Maintaining the magic. Wynwood is one of South Florida's hottest neighborhoods for development, and some investors are still finding value in remaining older buildings there for new uses. Link Real Estate and Jameson Equities turned an old print shop at 2509 North Miami Ave into the Print House. The site is now home to office and restaurant spaces, including outdoor dining in the former parking lot. The building attracted tenants because it was unique, said leasing broker Andreas Nava, managing director of Miami-based Metro One Commercial. The owner was not oblivious to the fact they could develop 12 stories there, but they felt it wasn't the right time today, Nava said. But the reuse added value to the real estate. Moish Manna has spent more than $400 million buying over 60 properties near Flagler Street in downtown Miami. And despite current zoning that would permit more than 60 stories there, he's starting with adaptive reuse. Manna is taking a cue from Wynwood to make Flagler Street a more pedestrian-friendly environment and bring new tenants into renovated spaces, said Brendan Miller, Chief Investment Officer of Los Angeles-based Thoroughfare Capital, which recently provided a $16.3 million loan to Manna's company for adaptive reuse on several buildings there. Thoroughfare, which focuses on adaptive reuse nationwide, recently opened a Miami office to increase its deals in South Florida. Manna will repurpose some of the buildings for ground floor retail to take advantage of the city-founded streetscape improvements. Miller said in some buildings, upper floor residential space will be converted into offices for the creative industries. Parking garages have provided a useful canvas for architect Pat Bosch, design director in the Miami office of Perkins and Will. She helped Trio Group build a student housing complex called Fox atop the parking garage at the South Miami Metro Rail station, capitalizing on the triangular shape of the garage to create a courtyard in between the apartments. She's also working with a Mercedes-Benz dealership to convert the former Coral Gables police headquarters and parking garage into a dealership. The police department needed a new building, and Bosch realized the old building could be repurposed instead of torn down. Instead of destroying buildings that have been a part of the community for decades, they can be reincorporated into the neighborhood's future, she said. When you do projects that are readaptive reuse, it's about long-term community building, Bosch said. It's about reimagining and celebrating history and a sense of place. We are building upon what we have instead of disposing of it. While some corporations prefer modern Class A office space, many technology companies and creative business appreciate history and nostalgia. So they seek adaptive reuse to attract employees, said Ben Mendel, co-managing partner of Miami-based Tricera Capital. His company is transforming the former Palm Beach Post office and printing facility in West Palm Beach into a multi-tenant offices, a grocery-anchored retail center and restaurants called The Press. Some of the printing equipment remains to remind tenants of its previous use. When you walk into the retail shops, you will know that this used to be different use, and you will be able to feel that, Mendel said. That delivering experience you can't create with ground-up, brand-new construction. Mandel said it would have cost about 30% more to deliver similar product with new construction. He said the retail and the office spaces are 70% to 60% leased, respectively. However, not all adaptive reuse projects make financial sense, he added. Sometimes the skeletons are in the closet with these older buildings, so it's more expensive to do adaptive reuse in certain structures, Mandel said. Costly surprises. Well, he's happy with the end result of the Angels nightclub, and it's an adjacent restaurant. Avaltal said that the construction job was riddled with unexpected challenges. You don't say. The underground utilities weren't where they expected. They had planned to take down a wall, but found a support column behind the drywall, so they had to reconfigure the kitchen instead. This project was one of the big surprises from beginning to end, Avaltal said, adding that they needed to improvise on the fly. Native Realty Sturgis said developers should conduct careful due diligence before committing to an adaptive reuse. Asbestos, lead paint, structural support issues could make a project more costly. In many cases, an older building must be brought up to current windstorm codes regarding the roofs and the windows, or even flood evaluation codes, he added. Impact fees are another hidden cost. Metro One's Nava said many municipalities require impact fees when a building has a significant change in the use that generates more traffic and need for public services. For instance, turning an empty space into a restaurant can bring up to $50 a square foot in impact fees. He said, landlords should calculate impact fees before starting construction or negotiating a lease with a tenant, he added. The cost of renovations and impact fees go a long way toward determining how much rent a project needs to bring in a turn in profit and what type of tenant the developer should target, Nava said. A less expensive job might be suitable for a creative office tenant, but a more expensive job might require a tenant that can afford higher rents, such as a restaurant. So there you go. Adaptive reuse going strong in Miami-Dade County, Broward County, all the way up to Palm Beach County.